Is a no. Joining me now, Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles. Andy, Representative Ogles, we went into the weekend. This was a $60 billion deal. Today it's a $78 billion deal. I think if they'd have waited another day, we'd have cracked $100 billion. You're a no on this. Why?
Well, I mean, you said it right there, right? They keep sweetening the pie to buy votes at a time where the economy, the stock market is reeling from our debt burden. And, and when you look at the Biden administration, look, you can like Joe Biden, you can dislike Joe Biden. I'm not a fan, let's be honest. But, we've lost energy independence. We've got ballooning debt. We're not going to fix this economy for the long term until we start addressing those two issues. And there's not enough money to cut to fix it. So we've got to grow our way out of it. But you have to have policies that support smart growth. In this Biden administration, whether it's the open border, where literally border towns across the southern part of the country are being invaded daily, or if you look at the economic policy, it's an abject failure.
I want to talk to you about the border for a moment, but you talk about the growth part of this. Is there anywhere, growth is great, but when we start talking $34-35 trillion, is there any area where we also can or should make sacrifices?
Again, when you look at roughly 85% is on autopilot, you're going into an election year. And so any tough cuts that might need to be made just aren't going to be made. Nobody's going to want to talk about it, about any sort of entitlement reform. And so that leaves you with the other. And so when you have this kind of unbridled spending, so like you said, you start the weekend at 60 or 70 billion and you come out of the weekend and you're racing towards 100. I mean, this is unacceptable, and we've got to change the muscle memory of Congress of spend, spend, spend. And, like you were talking to your previous guests, basically everybody wants the status quo right now. That's what you're seeing happening. The Democrats don't want to do anything that rocks the boat. The Republicans don't want to do anything. Meanwhile, the country is begging for leadership, which is why Iowa was dominated by Donald Trump.
Iowa was dominated by Donald Trump, and immigration was the dominant issue. The Senate has a border deal. Of course, the clock is ticking. It could be an integral part of whether or not the government shuts down during an election year, where I think the media would be salivating to blame the Republican Party. But you don't like the deal as it's presented so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some provisions in there that most people would consider. We're talking about the immigration deal that would consider amnesty. Look, if you come into this country illegally, you're an illegal, right? You broke our laws. And so we've got to get serious about closing the border, about restricting this flow. And you said it, I've said it. Look, every town in America is now a border town. So whether you're talking about somewhere in New York, you're talking about somewhere in South Dakota, every town is a border town because of the influx of migrants and because of the fentanyl. We all know somebody or know someone who's had an overdose with fentanyl. It's pouring into our country. This is a problem. I've been to the border, and I went unannounced. I didn't let Border Patrol know that I was coming. And we literally had over 100 people turn themselves into me because they're like, hey, where do we go to get processed? We want to be let loose in this country. That's how bad it is. And I walked unfettered into Mexico. I just strolled right across the border, hung out for a little bit, and I came right back in. Border Patrol was never there to check my papers, if you will. And so with that, we've got a problem. We have a crisis at the southern border, never mind the fact 65% or so of women and children that come across have been sexually abused.
Yeah, it's really a nightmare. It's just hard to fathom why we allow this to go on and why anyone would suggest it's